Welcome to the Port Charles Update with your hosts, Mish and Mel. Hello.
Hello.
So just a reminder, people, we are leaving for our trip soon. So we're going to have this podcast because you'll hear it. I'm so not good at these announcements, but then you won't for the next time. So this
So
time is
let
good.
me,
Next time is no.
okay, I'm going to help with that, people.
Yes.
So I'm going to just rein things in a little bit. Hi, Mel here. So you're going to get a podcast when you're listening to this. It will be January 18th, but
Yes.
you will not get a podcast on January 25th because we will be sipping on margaritas.
Yes, dates are helpful. I'm also sad, guys, and I'm going to do my best. Like, of course, I'm thrilled I'm going on vacation, but I also do need to watch General Hospital for me. So I'm going to do my best. So,
Me
like,
too.
if I have access to it, because that's the thing too, like, we're not having the podcast, but then I was like, oh, damn, like, I don't know if I'll actually be posting. So obviously, I'm going to try to focus on my trip, and I'm going to also prioritize trying to watch General Hospital. And if I can, I'll definitely post because I'm sure there's going to be things that are going to be like, I want to talk about it. I can with you, I guess, Mel, right?
Yeah,
You'll
totally
you'll be
be there right
there.
by your
You'll be
side.
there. I guess I could talk to her instead of prioritizing posting to everyone else on Instagram. Okay, well, I
I
guess I'm covered. I guess I'm covered. I can talk to you. All right, so we'll talk about it. So good.
cannot. We can press send together on the post or however you do.
Okay. So like I don't know how you felt, but like this week, like when it started and we had those scenes with Willow, I was like, it's so crazy how much deeper her voice sounds. It
When
was like
she's
much more
serious.
it was more masculine than usual. It sounded an awful lot like Drew. I just like when I was listening, I was like, wow, she sounds a little different. Like I could not believe that she was just allowing him to talk for her. Like I'm flashing back to Joss telling her off and Nina coming in. And she paused. She kind of allowed Nina to say a little bit. And she's like, I don't need to be protected. Like she went on this whole thing for a while. I don't need to be protected or anything like that or sheltered. And then it was just like, I need everyone to talk for me and I'm going to stand here like a lump. Like, what did you think?
It's so wild. So wild. It was
Because
so hard to watch and very painful.
it was. I mean, look, there was a lot of pain that we were witnessing at the same time. With Willow, it was really interesting them just spelling things out, really. Like, I, I'm going to say this. When Willow had her talk with Chase, and she's
Yes.
like, I've been thinking, and I think I've been just going to people that saved me. And she made a list. I'm like, you didn't think of crap. Jocelyn told you.
Exactly. You're just regurgitating this. You're like repurposing the information.
I just couldn't believe what she was saying. And then at the end of their talk, like, I mean, look, he was super kind about
Yes.
it. I didn't know how the talk was going to go because when she was asking for that, in terms of Chase, the last time he had seen Willow at the Christmas thing, he expressed how annoyed he was at Drew for just being so imposing when it came to Willow. So when she asked the
Hmm.
question, like, am I thinking for myself? I was like, is Chase going to be direct? But he didn't. He took the high road and acted like a friend and just listened and didn't judge her, which I think is beyond. So he just listened.
Well, he's so good though, because remember, he was there when they took away the kids from Nina's
Yeah.
apartment. He heard firsthand where she was and who she was with. So he really did a good job at maintaining face because that was a really tough conversation. He's been in the middle of it all, like everybody else.
Yeah, that's true. Except Tracy won't acknowledge that, but he has been in the middle of that. And
Mm.
and so anyway, so they have their conversation, but I mean, look, I think she got it right. She was facing some difficult truths and it's makes sense, right? She's admitting that to herself with a person that she trusts. But then he tried to reinterpret that for her. He's like, I don't
Hmm.
see it that way. I'm like, Drew, go back to listening. Go back to
Chase,
just
Chase,
who? Chase. Chase.
Chase.
Sorry, Chase. I didn't mean to call you a
How
Drew.
dare you?
Ugh. So yeah, I just felt like Chase should have just stayed quiet. But what I thought was funny about that whole conversation at the end was when she was like, "Oh, thanks, Chase. Like I feel like she had like a fresh take on like you helped me get like a fresh take. And I'm like, you mean Nina's take again?
No,
Like
no,
not
like I could
you.
not like Nina, I'm throwing an early start at Nina.
Yes.
Nina has been the voice of reason, incredibly patient. The face acting has been on point, and you can see how restrained she was being
Oh
when she was having that moment with Willow right before Chase Rise. But exactly that. Nina has been going behind the scenes, speaking on your behalf. Nina is trying to bring you back down to earth, and you don't see any of it.
But you know what? Now that we're talking, okay, because I was feeling two ways about this. Like the way I was
Okay.
seeing Nina by the end of the week, this was sort of my feel. I felt
Mhm.
that Nina was gaining confidence to the point that I felt, you know what? I feel like Nina is strong. She's getting stronger in that role, right? That I think she's feeling confident in herself, like I'm doing the right thing, I'm coming from a good place. And I feel like she even feels more comfortable in her role of mom, specifically Willow's mom, that I was
Mhm.
starting to think, dude, I think like Nina could be strong enough to just actually tell her. Like, this is what I was thinking. In my head, I'm like, given where Nina's at, I think it's possible that on her own accord, she could tell her. I think just where her character is at. But now that we're talking,
Mhm.
so what? Your mom says something you don't like, and you're like, oh, mom, like she acted like a little teenager
Yes.
and she didn't want to hear it from her. She was like, I'm so mad at you. I don't want to hear it. I'm my own person. And then Chase, I don't know why I can't say his name. I really don't. I really don't.
It's because
So,
he kept all his clothes on. It's really hard to remember his name when he has all his clothes on.
but
We usually
what's funny? Because I called him Drew and then I called him Jace. Obviously, the only other J is like Jason.
yeah.
Just, I can't get past those bros. I just can't. So, so it's like even then it was like Nina said something and it's like, oh, my mom said it, you're so annoying, and then a boy said that, she's like, you're so smart, I love what you just said to me. And so in that sense maybe Nina's not wrong for being like, I don't want to tell her something she doesn't like.
Well, I find it so fascinating because we said like Nina's coming from this place of experience where she's messed up, but in such a huge way, like Willow. Like it's not like a Carly situation. Like it's its own little unique parallel universe bubble. Nina
Yeah.
has acted like a teenager adult forever. So she
Mhm.
really understands this train of thought and how to navigate it. So it's so cool to watch.
Oh yeah, because like you said, it's unique, right? So I
Hmm.
like it's so unique. It's very Nixon Falls, right?
It is.
Like, Drew and Willow, they're on a little love bubble planet and it doesn't make sense. And when reality hits, right? Reality is custody. And not just hers. Drew might be struggling with custody shortly
I was
himself.
like, custody of Willow? Yes, he will be struggling.
And so it's so strange, you know what I mean? Like I feel like Nina has totally come full circle. I totally love it. I mean, look, she did her best because like when we came back on Monday, there was Willow being like, the thing I didn't want to do, I'm going to do it because Drew told me it's a good thing. And he said it. He said words and I was like, yes, I don't have thoughts of my own. It's blank up here. Please fill it. So she and then it was just gross hearing her being like, I'm Michael's wife.
Oh, so gross. So gross. Still has that ring on. Still has that ring on.
I was just like, is you really want to say that? And then like Carly lashed out explaining, really, and explained where she was, what she was doing. And that's what it's kind of like how I felt last week because I'm trying to understand what the choice is here
Hmm.
because you get the kids taken away, which is a huge shocker. Actually, like I didn't actually think it was possible, nor did it make sense to take the kids from Willow, being the only remaining parent. I was like, well, she won by default, right? And that sucks because I think
Yeah.
the kids, are not necessarily going to be around the Quartermains or Carly, whatever, given all the friction. And so out of nowhere, we get this freaking twist. So it's like, the audience has been appalled, right? Like we're just angry and they're rubbing it in our faces. They're like, look, guys, Michael's on fire and look what Willow's doing. And we're just like, yeah, she's
Yeah.
terrible. And then so by the time she gets her kids taken away, we're all like, yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know better. I know she did a crappy thing. She's not crappy to her kids. Like, we know she's a
Yeah.
good mom, but I can be honest and say, I'm mad at her. So, yeah, take the kids away. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense. So the thing is, a big thing is accomplished. Like Willow on one hand and Drew are kind of like just creating chaos, knocking down people in that wake, moving forward in their own thing, but kind of without consequence. And I just figured it would maybe go on like that. So I was
Yes.
really shocked when they got the kids away. But then this happens and it's like, give the kids back. So Nina goes and appeals to Sunny, right? Like she tries to appeal to him, and very quickly he's like, sure, take them. And Carly's upset. he's like, I wasn't here when all this
You
happened.
know what? I
I
don't feel it
barely,
anyways.
yeah, like he's like, I barely have a stake in this. Um, and now Michael's my son again, so I want to be with him. And and so that whole thing happens, and I was like, honestly, it's very rational, loving, and compassionate. There, like the decision. But the other side of me that was mad at Willow was like, why didn't you just call Diane? Like, why didn't you guys
No,
make
but
this worse
do
though?
you
Like,
know
why?
how many times I screamed at the TV this week? Where is Diane?
Like, because she wasn't in the office by the time Drew went there. So I feel like
Mm-mm.
she should have been at the hospital, because this is where I'm at with this. This is like a Drew power play. So I agree with Tracy. Tracy's Tracy. Tracy.
Oh boy. Okay.
I called her like because I used the ch sound. Do you want to hear something I said this week? I was telling Johnny, I was like, all my favorite foods are chuz. And he's like, what the hell is a ch? And I'm like, I like chips, cheese, and chocolate. Anyways.
Guys, interesting fact about your co-host, Mish. The more you know. So if you want to send us gifts, send gifts into.
It's because I called Tracy, and I'm like, you're part of my favorite foods, apparently.
Aw.
It just sounds, but I agree with Tracy's perspective, and she gets to have it
Yes.
because she has perspective, meaning she has enough distance. She cares. But she
Yes.
has a distance that nobody else who loves Michael in the way that they do has. Like, she's not she's not married to him, she's not the parent, so she doesn't have that connection. But she wasn't wrong to point out that Drew's behind this, Drew's after the family, and that sort of vengeance is playing a role, and he has Willow's
Mhm.
ear, so she's not acting like herself. And so we can make this agreement, but there's nothing to make sure that it holds. And she wasn't wrong in any of that. Like Tracy's playing the long
Mhm.
game, and you can't blame them, right? The emotions are running high, they're afraid, and a lot of that is taking over. So when it came to that, I just felt like logically, like I said last week, like the court had just decided that Willow shouldn't be with her kids. I don't,
Yes.
but yet Ava couldn't get an emergency thing. They're like, well, you can't get emergency custody because Avery wasn't there, silly. By chance, she wasn't home. She wasn't in danger by chance. So she's
Exactly.
fine. And I was like, this is insane. Like, you know what I mean? Like Willow
Right?
can get her, like there could be an emergency custody, say Willow's not fit, but not for like the whole Avery situation. Anyways. So in that moment, I'm like, if the court thinks that Willow is unfit to have her own kids, given the custody situation, it would be strange to be like, yeah, we'll also let her then make decisions for Michael.
Right? It makes no
So
sense.
no, and I felt that like Diane could argue it. And so for me, my confusion was like, well, what's your point? Like why did you like I mean the kids are the real victim here. Like they're just
Yeah.
like so you took the kids away, but then they get them back. So I'm like, then I don't understand what's happening until today. So when Drew shows up, I was like, okay, well now I see. Like in a short period of time, they're showing a lot of tit for tat. So this
Mhm.
is sort of like their war. So they're just kind of showing that part, I guess. Like
I
instead of
guess
dragging
so.
it out and making it a custody thing and this long drawn out thing of like Carly versus Willow and all that stuff. I guess Tracy's right that under it all, this is really all Drew
Mhm.
upset at the family. And now they have this knockoff Quartermain kind of going to war with them. So it really truly is a war between Drew and the Quartermains. And I hope that Willow can see that after this stunt. Like, I don't understand why on earth you felt that if you got the court to agree to get the kids back, why you would not have called Willow. And it was disgusting because we know why. You want to appear like a hero and actually
Yes.
walk the kids back to her. So, and I
So
think that's
gross.
ridiculous. Like, if you were prioritizing any child, knowing what the kids went through, you keep saying the kids should be with their mother. So, why should they be a pawn in trying to win your lover?
Because you're gonna make such a cute family. Like Scout like loves her so much, guys.
Oh my gosh, it was just so gross because I'm like, if
So
the kids
gross.
have gone through this much back and forth, then it might have been better to have Willow there for that transition. So, the thing I want to ask you
Hmm.
in this story, Drew's the other man.
Yes.
Okay. And I feel, I don't know if you've gotten this vibe or how you've taken it, but like Drew's acting so desperate and thirsty. He's acting like the typical third party to a marriage. He's saying things like think about that. Think about the stereotype we usually see on TV.
Yeah.
Okay? Of that friend. He like, that's telling you they're not gonna leave. They're just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so then when he goes to see Nina, like she was so annoyed. She's like, if I don't have to pretend, like Willow's not
The
here, I don't
best.
have to pretend.
Loved it.
And when he walks in, he's telling her this stuff that he's using, saying, he's like, we have real feelings for one another. And then they bring up cracks in the marriage. And then he's like, those cracks were there long before I arrived. We have something real. I'm like, you sound delulu. You're like, now that I've broken up this marriage, Willow will be ready for nothing else but a long-term relationship with me.
And only me forever.
He's sticking so close by because she might remember that she has another option, which is reconciling with her husband or basically not being with her husband's uncle. Like there's a possibility to say no to that.
Right? Like you can be single. Like there's so many things. He's giving such like creepy older guy vibes. Like it's so bad in so many ways.
And it takes me back to that moment. So you remember the night, okay, Sam dies, and then Carly has to go to the Quartermains to tell him.
Yes.
Okay. And they have a conversation. He says something that makes Carly go, what? Because now that Sam's dead, he turns around and goes like, I don't think I could do this by myself. I don't know if he said by myself or just I don't think I could do
Um,
this. But as a parent, because and then they kind of talk about the fact that he has not been a full-time dad.
yeah.
So then Carly was like appalled. She's like, well, yes, you can and yes, you will.
You have to. Yeah.
And so when I think about what he's doing now, I'm like, it feels
Mm.
like that. Like I truly cannot parent her. I'm not used to this full time. I just need to snag a woman to raise her.
A young woman to raise her. That is so on point and close to a lot of realities.
So, yeah, so that's what I was feeling about Drew. He was just really thirsty and just acting like the typical, I'm gonna say it, other woman. Because that's what we because like that's what I find fascinating about GH. We have our Jordan, which is like our female Sunny. And in this situation, it's like we typically see the other women, right? We have Carly, who historically came and broke up her mom's marriage.
Hmm.
We usually see that. We see the women lurking. We usually see her portrayed as a bit of like a stalker, you know,
So
inserting herself, the
true.
manipulation. And so it's so strange to me because I'm like, but that's who Drew is in this scenario. We just never see it this way.
I love it. I love it more. I don't like him, but I love
No, but I
how
but
this
I feel
looks.
like that's what they're portraying. It's just that why it's strange is like we don't see that often. Like that's not how they choose to depict it. If somebody is cheating, it's always the man cheating and there's another woman.
Yes.
And so that's what I feel like. He's giving a lot of other women vibes. That what Alexis was asking? It's like talk about when your relationship's fragile.
Yes.
How serious are you? It's gonna be. Yeah, for sure. It's for sure it's gonna be.
Once her husband gets out of that burn unit, we're gonna like go hard.
And then Alexa's like, but she's in the middle of like a custody battle and her family breaking up. And then he's like, I'm gonna be there for her every step of the way. And then she's like, but what about Scout? He's still gonna be. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, whoa, whoa.
Right?
So she just left her at the hotel?
Apparently.
He moved her. Like, he won't stop saying, oh, it's the quartermains. They don't care about Scout. I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure it's you they don't care about. And they would have been more
Yeah.
than thrilled to have Scout there.
Yeah, he's the one who took her away. Like he's making the narrative his own because I do remember that like he's the one that said like he has to move out with her now.
Yeah. And I think it's awful, like realizing that you took Scout away from her brothers, like unnecessarily.
Hmm.
And you're not even
Yes.
moving to DC. You're just gonna move to DC and leave her in a hotel room with
Right?
someone
With
else.
nannies, right?
Yeah, because his family doesn't like him. And the fact that he's like so, it's just all that nuance, right? Like Nina is stuck in a world where everyone around her is Ninaing a la Nixon Falls. And she's like, what do I do with this? It's a lot.
I was a lot back then, guys.
And so and he's delusional. Like he's taking zero responsibility. He's like, well, I had feelings and it's like not my fault. And like that's just what it was. And it's like, but the thing is, like, no one's saying, you know, you're awful for having feelings. We're saying you're awful for like acting on them like on a nursery floor. We're saying
Yes.
it's like kind of gross that you were rolling around while Michael was burning. We know because we saw. You didn't know, but we know. We know
We know.
at the
We
exact same
know.
time. But also, just because you have feelings, it doesn't mean you take a child out of state without like permission from their dad. Like that's just disrespect. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could have at least maintained it's not like Michael didn't know. He knows you're with Drew. He knows there's a possibility you're going to want to pursue Drew, that you'll have feelings for him, and maybe he doesn't want to deal with it. But he put the kids first from day one of this whole thing. And all you needed to do was just maintain that mutual respect and keep the focus on the kids, at least in the early days. It's not like he doesn't know. And if he said no, well,
Exactly.
isn't that just like a tiny consequence? I cheated on my husband with his uncle. I want to pursue romantical times with him. I want to go be photographed by journalists at his inauguration. And I just can't take my son with me. That's all. Like, that's it. But I'll get my son the moment I come back.
Yeah.
And I don't have to have a nanny this way when I want to go to his hotel room. Like, how is that bad?
It's really not. That's what makes it so messed up
Oh my
and
gosh.
so fun to watch.
And like we're forgetting the part where like Sunny takes off with Nina and Drew
Yes.
won't stop talking for Willow. And just the mere
Oof.
fact that like Carly had to tell him to stop and that Willow couldn't think to tell him to stop.
Like all of it was absolutely absurd. Her making her big stance of that's my husband and her lover is like holding her hand, making this statement for her with her.
It's just, you have to know your audience, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
if you're gonna go and like talk to your like husband's parents, like you just don't bring your lover to his medical crisis. Like I just
Yeah, like
think
it's just not cool. It's just like
no,
normal etiquette, you know?
no, like don't bring a date to a medical crisis.
Amazing.
Do you imagine? Oh my gosh. Someone my family member is in an accident. I need to find a date right now. Do you want to come? It's black time. Like just everyone's just come from an event. We want to fit in. But so yeah, that was super gross.
Gross.
And when she's like, Drew, I want to prove to Carly that I'm my own person. So could you stand 1 foot away from me, please? Like if I'm asking for privacy, I'm not asking for you to stand behind me and listen to everything. Like I'm literally asking
Right?
for you to go away. And what I love the most was when Carly goes, "Oh, I see what you're doing," because she wasn't wrong, right? Like whether Drew admits it or
Hmm.
not, whether he's doing it consciously or not, you are like you have I like he's already done it, and that's the thing. I don't even think he can see what he's done, and neither can Willow.
No, they're so far gone and lost. Like Willow seems to be hopefully coming out of the fog. Like she made some steps forward. And
Yeah.
Drew is, and I'm hoping that this will open her eyes to the situation of how the week ended, which is going to be even more fun to watch because, okay, we get a little bit of normal Willow back, and then we'll still see a stalkery Drew.
But that's exactly it. I'm kind of scared. I'm actually scared of what
Ooh.
Drew's going to do if Willow decides that, she did leave her husband, but she's not ready for anything serious. I
It,
don't know what he's going to do.
Okay, that's so true because everybody in the mob, everybody who should be dealing with their emotions differently are very toned down and like a Jason is very teary. A Sunny is trying to make sure to keep the peace. Carly is keeping calm. And then you have people like Nina using words like he needs to be dealt with, like with Drew, Tracy using mob language. Like all the people who wouldn't normally speak in that manner are like Drew lashing out with Cody. Like it's just been a
You
weird
feel like
emotional
everyone's,
week.
yeah, like opposite
Topsy
land.
turvy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
in some ways. For Willow, I am a bit nervous about how Drew's gonna react because like I mean, why would it be unexpected that she'd have to pump the brakes?
Also, where did we hide the kids?
I don't know what Tracy did with the
Does
kids.
Tracy have an island? I know Sunny has an island.
I don't know what she did. I mean, chances are they're at the park. You know what I mean? There's nothing. I don't think that there's anything like crazy going on there. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you're right. Willow is coming out of it, right? She has a lot to think. But I just want to know because if she's capable, like let's say Drew, without Drew in the mix, influencing her, she was able to have a conversation with Carly and Sunny, and I don't think it was super easy. Um,
Oh.
there, everything is still raw, and then they had another kind of controversial topic of his treatment, and they still managed to come to this, decision of waking Michael, where he's going to be in pain to make the decision himself. So it's like they were able to accomplish all of that. Okay. So, how is she going to feel when she finds out that he took the police and everybody, that he went to her lawyer, made arrangements to get her kids, did not inform her, um, and then insisted Tracy be arrested.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I know this is way too logical, but Martin, how is Martin okay with all of this in the sense that like Drew is the lover goes to the lawyer who is not paid by Drew, who is
Mhm.
nor married to Willow, who is currently married, and just says, "Hey, lawyer, I know you're being paid by Nina, but I really need you to do me a solid."
Okay, so something they kind of didn't follow up on in that scene is that it
Mhm.
looked like Martin was applying for a job with Drew's camp because he was sitting with Jordan
Oh,
and I
right.
was already
That's true. He's
vetted.
like, I gave my credentials. Bup, 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 bup. Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
so I kind of think a little quid pro quo, something of the sort. Plus, Martin has also breached client confidentiality.
Yeah, it's a little sketchy. Yes.
So I mean, Martin's in it for Martin. He's a good guy. But yeah, so no, it doesn't really surprise me. But the whole thing is a bit wonky, and I don't know what's gonna go on with the whole Tracy thing. But yeah, so don't know where the kids are, don't know what's happening. But like when I saw that go down, I'm like, okay, I kind of see. Like we're kind of shifting the war maybe more toward like the Quartermains because as we watch the week progress, there's a lot of feelings, and there could very well be a lot of animosity, and things could have really hit the fan with just Willow, Sunny, and Carly, but like it's not. It hasn't
Hmm.
been like.
It's very fascinating.
So I mean, they've seemed to come to an agreement. Like I'm sure they agree that they don't like each other, but they're agreeing to kind of do what's best for Michael. And it's crazy to watch how like without Michael, how everything just sort of crumbled. Yes, there's like a medical thing, but it's just, his role was peacemaker,
Exactly. It
you know?
was so, I know he was in pain and he did that role really well. And it's like, I'm trying to remember that it's a soap opera, but I didn't think he would have any more like words or open eye scenes before he
Mhm.
left, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I am looking forward to seeing those final scenes. But also, what did you think about the Jason Carly scenes? Like again, we know that they're best friends, but like the intensity, we note it. But the intensity this week, I was like,
No, no.
what
But
is
he,
this conversation? Our
yeah, well, like, she said our baby. If he was our,
baby.
like, I got stuck on that for a while, like, echoed in my head like a TV scene. Our baby. Our baby. I was like, did I miss something, people?
Yes, because that's the thing. I'm like, did you just say that? Because you could have said like, okay, I thought he had the wrong father, sure. But then she said like, she were basically saying like, I wish we had a baby,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
our baby wouldn't have been this because at the end of the day, Michael is their kid, And that's what they're
Yes.
saying. And I'm like, this is insane. She's like, you were Michael's father in every way that counted. I'm like, do you remember
Hmm.
Sonny? I think he's down the hall from here. Like, I was just like,
Yes, just about died. I was like, wow, big statements,
but
friends.
yeah, like I know they belong to all three of them, but I mean, when she said in every way that counts, I mean, look, it's true. We've watched Sonny over the years with Michael, and when Michael became an adult and they got into rifts, I mean, my Sonny disowned him like so many
So
times.
many times.
So, I mean, I just found the scenes to be really intense. I just did not know what to make of it. And I'm like, okay, buds, what? Like, oh, and then Carly today said she would be with Michael should he choose to go to Germany, which he probably will every step of the way. Or he can go to John Hopkins. We wouldn't see him either way.
True, true.
So where do you think he's going to go?
Oh, he's gonna have to go away far away because of the care, or unless they convince that doctor to come to John Hopkins. Cannot speak.
You catch
Whichever
my
hospital.
problem. You caught my
I,
problem. Sorry.
I did. It's contagious on the podcast. I think he's gonna go far away because she has to have that connection and link to Brennan.
Yes, yes, for sure. Okay. What did you think of Willow and Sasha's encounter?
OMG, that was harsh. Willa went low, like real dirty low. I could not believe it, but good on Sasha for keeping her own.
This is what annoys me about her. And like, it's just like, where was this all this time? This is why it's like it comes off different. Like, even though it's like when Willow says these things, it comes off nasty because it doesn't feel genuine. You know, she's like, perfect, perfect, perfect. And then, like, boom, all this judgment on Sasha and all this outrage. Like, you lied to us, you lied about your mom. And like, I don't know, like, why do you care so much?
It just felt very Nina-ish again. Like I love how they're
Yes,
paralleling certain things where, for the longest time you were saying, I wish somebody would see how Nina speaks. Like
yes.
she would never get caught in those moments with like Carly. Sonny just saw the best sides of Nina, and he would always be like right around the corner. Well, it's like the same thing with Willow. She exactly that. She's harboring all of this resentment and judgment and these mean things, but she will only say it in very specific situations.
It's true. I haven't seen Willow behave that way with anyone else.
Hmm.
Okay, but then when she said other things too, like, did you just so after your cousin, you just circled back to Michael?
Oh, it's so bad. Yes, and I'm carrying his baby mofo.
But do you know what I think is really funny?
Well,
So in this place and time, Willow's in this place where it's like, yes, like she acknowledged it. Like Michael supported me to his parents. Like Michael did everything for me. She's recognizing that. So in her mind, Michael is devoted to her.
she's just saying exactly what Sasha told her.
She's repeating everything that, like, Joss and Sasha have said. Like, like again, no thoughts, right? Sometimes it's Drew thoughts, sometimes it's Sasha, sometimes it's Joss. Like, oh my gosh, nothing belongs to her at this moment. But why I thought this was hilarious is that she's like, Michael is devoted to me. Drew is devoted to me. But Michael's having Sasha's baby, and Drew slept with her mother during and after and between this crush that you had, right? Like in the
Yeah.
middle of all of where like your love was coming to fruition, he was sleeping
Hmm.
with your mom while the feelings were developing, while they were percolating. He was
It,
just
it's it sounds like a your mama joke, but it's
yeah. So like that was just wild to me, and I love because that's the thing. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it's like it's the subtle little nuances. Like Sasha's getting mad, but when she gets mad and says stuff, it lands because it feels real to Sasha. Right?
yes,
Because Sasha wasn't pigeonholed and like this, like, oh, you can have this one emotion, you can be this one thing. So
yes,
it's sort of like when she talks, you believe her. You're like, yeah, that's Sasha. But Willow's in the place where, like, that's not Willow. Willow is very used to what her identity is. Like, remember when, like, Lucas told her off, she's like, he did that to me? And she's seen other people do horrible things and thought it was horrible. But now she did this horrible things and she thinks it's like terrible that there's a reaction. It's almost like she's so simple. She's been this like goody goody for so long. It's almost like she feels like I garnered such goodwill. Why am I getting a reaction? Because like all my goodness should just compensate for this. And even Drew kind of feels that I did a bad thing, but why is it a problem? The court means do similar behaviors. Like there's just really weird thing. But I'm like, yes, people all make mistakes, but you don't just make the mistakes and be like, I should be forgiven because you've also done bad stuff. You still have to live it. You still have to live through what you did. You have to take your lumps, like Lucy said. So she gave that advice to Sasha ages ago when she pretended to be Nina's daughter. You just have to live it. You have to try again. You have to show people that you've changed, but you have to do it for you. You're a pariah. Who cares? Hold your head up high and just can move on. Like continue to do the best you can.
That's exactly what you used to say about Nina.
Yeah. Okay. so that's
No, but
where
legit.
So that's why it's like when she's telling off Sasha, I don't like it. Not because you're necessarily saying mean things. It grates at me because it doesn't feel genuine. It feels like, oh, I'm just gonna like say what I think I should say, and all these. It's like I just feel like you're being mean, and you just don't really understand where Sasha's coming from, what's happening, or how to fight with people.
It's like she's trying on different personalities. Like
Yeah,
again, and I keep making these comparisons because I feel like they're making laying the groundwork for us. Like how Nina was trying out being nice. She doesn't know what forgiveness is. She was basically a teenager adult who came out of a coma, learning how to be a human. And here we have Willow, who has grown up in a cult, never really had the ability to make her own choices or have her own personality or her own thoughts. And she tried really hard. But again, we've all witnessed, and it's been said multiple times in the past weeks, that she's jumped from, hero to hero, rescuer to rescuer, whatever you want to call it. But she's never really had a chance to be her own person. And it's like she's testing the waters of what it is between good and bad and how people should see her and how she sees others and what is owed to her.
yeah. Like I mean, it's less dramatic than Chase, right? Like Chase was this goody goody, and then he meets Brooklyn, and we see his gray a little bit. And to be
Yeah.
frank, as much as Willow went through all these dramatic storylines and emotional scenes, her character was very much in a box, right? She was a caricature of like this niceness. She was like
Yes.
this saint, and so I do think this allows her character to kind of develop and have layers. And you talked about it, and it's true. There were times where Nina tested out being nice, and then 2 seconds later she tantrum because it didn't work. And the Nina I'm seeing right now, I think why I'm connecting so much with her is not just the stuff she's saying. It's just that she feels real. Like she feels like
Yes,
she feels
100%.
so comfortable in her skin. She seems so confident in her thoughts. Like
Mhm.
even when I hear her talking about who she thinks Drew is or how Willow strayed from herself, I'm like, wow, like this is the most solid I've ever seen Nina. Because that's the whole point, right? Like if Nina was ever secure, comfortable with herself, she would have put more attention on her own life rather than Carly's.
Exactly, exactly.
And now you have Willow in that place. Well, if everyone else gets to act like that, me too. But it's not you, though. And it's not to say that bad behavior belongs more with other people. But if you're going to do bad behavior, act out in a way that's still you.
Exactly, I totally agree.
So, yeah, I guess I am loving how everybody's sort of like evolving in that way. And as we're talking about adults acting like teenagers, Lulu's back. Yay.
Oh, I know I have to I don't we don't have the luxury of fast forwarding through scenes. We have to, like, watch everything, take it in so we can discuss it and analyze it. It is absolute torture. It is just really, really tough to see her navigate adult type situations and see people for who they are, and everybody's tippy toeing around her, and I am tired. She made me very tired this week. How did she make you feel?
Uh, I d- I just didn't like what she did to Laura. I didn't like when she went to go see her mom and her mom was
Mhm.
I don't like this bizarre manipulation to get everybody to be as tunnel vision as her. I didn't like that
Yes.
it says, "Mom, how does it feel to see me?" Well, that's how I felt with Charlotte. You know,
So bad.
and Dante's the reason that I lost everything. But also I think Dante has a point that I do endanger her by following her and trying to find her. And so she's not wrong, right? Every mother you speak to, not being with your kid is agony, but she's leaving out certain parts of like Charlotte is choosing to be with her dad. And I'm not saying that Charlotte, should be making that decision, I'm not. But you never really had the best relationship with Charlotte. Like in a way that never really changed, right? It
Yes.
even if Charlotte was living in Port Charles, even if Valentine wasn't on the run, Lulu would think that her visitation or the kind of shared custody of Charlotte would still be unfair. She would still want more, and she wants Charlotte to love her more than Valentine. Of course, I think she wants to be with her daughter,
Mhm.
but the way that she's so fixated
Ooh,
More
you
about,
mhm.
for me, it just feels more about being picked over Valentine than, Charlotte's missing because she has a son that she can't even think about and refuses to and thinks that Charlotte being missing justifies that.
It's wild because it's again so familiar from the Nina storyline where Willow
Mhm.
was just an object to acquire as opposed to somebody to get to know and neglecting the people around her who needed her and love her, like a Maxie, a Sasha. She had a lot of really great people in her life, her brother, but she was so focused on just these strange, specific things that just didn't lend to the rest of her life and what she's actually saying.
Yeah. Like I do find that's what's happening. And there's a couple
Mhm.
things there. Like I wonder if we are going to get a scene where people actually catch Lulu just bringing up really, really old stuff. Because you have any idea how cringe it would be if Maxie
Yes.
had walked in and been like, "Oh yeah, you evolved or you had jobs and people paid you for stuff." Remember that time someone paid you to do that to Dante? Like how many times did you even say it
Ugh.
before you went in the coma? Like I think that's really cringe, and I feel like I don't think Brooklyn deserves this because if she works under
No.
Brooklyn, I don't think it's okay because I think Lulu is going to sabotage things. I think she's going to do things to make Brooklyn look bad. And Brooklyn is a full person and I think she's being a brat. And I'm kind of
Yes.
waiting for the moment where not just trying to like give like explain, hey, I'm closer because of this. Like you don't have to explain it. These were experiences you had and things changed. Like things just change, but at what point will you call her on her stuff? Like there's certain things you have to let go. Like you have to act civil and act with respect. Like this is ridiculous. It's not good for anybody. It's especially not good for you. And also calling her on the Charlotte stuff. I think everybody has sort of called her on it in their own way, right? Like Tracy's trying to set limits. I will help you, but you can't go gallivanting and chasing with no leads. Laura is saying the same thing. And I think it sucks. Like, I mean, at least she's trying to get a job, but
Mhm.
I don't, like I don't see her working on accepting it. I think with Lulu, I know it's hard. It's never going to be okay not having Charlotte there, but like when will you face reality? When
Yes.
will you understand? Because I think with the Charlotte situation, it's not in her hands. And trust me, if you find her again, like she may not say yes again. And I think Charlotte will come back. And I think Valentine will notice when it's too much for her and send her back. He knows. He knows it can't go on forever.
But has it been mentioned yet? Like Laura has said a lot of things about Valentine, but has she kind of stood up for him in the sense that he is a really good father and he has been there for her and that, there was this relationship that was built before everything went awry?
I want that to happen where, maybe she wants Lulu to calm down a little bit to say that she had a relationship with Valentine. Like remember when he helped her with the whole Nicholas thing with one of her
Yes.
trips or whatever and he went with her. But she didn't say that he was a good dad. She just said he would do anything to protect Charlotte to keep her safe.
Yes.
But I felt that also should have came from Dante, right? Like if Dante was afraid for
True.
Charlotte, he would have said something, but I mean, that wasn't the case. Like he knows Valentine is a good dad to her.
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't know. I just think obviously in a way she's going to end up with that job.
I'm just annoyed for Brooklyn, to be honest, because it's not okay. Like Maxie should have good enough instinct to not let that happen.
Like let her go somewhere else. Like where else? Because like I mean, she technically worked for the magazine, but I liked when Maxie was like, "But do you even like cosmetics?"
Right? Like, I'm sorry, there's the Metro Court, there's the gallery, there's all kinds of places. There's the coffee place, there's the steakhouse, there's all kinds of places.
That fit Lulu. Because even when she worked at Crimson, she was good at her job, but she didn't like fashion then. It was Maxie's thing. And then it just became this like competitive thing.
Like, go work at Bobby's. Do something to work your way up, get yourself out of your funk, do something.
Actually, I
Not
think
there.
Bobby's would be a really great place to start for her. Like if you're willing to be an assistant
Oh,
and not be a
sh-
journalist.
she could work at Bobby's and then have one of the rooms upstairs. Like, that's what everybody does.
It's true. I think that would have been like a better fit for her. But I loved what they're doing. Did you notice how they threw Geo into a scene with his uncle Cody and
Oh,
Dante?
I loved it so hard. They were cute. They were poking. Cody was being silly with him and just poking at it. It was so awesome.
Yes, and Brooklyn even was more explicit. So last week we found out, about having the baby, and then we're having it like reconfirmed. And I'm like, I look at Johnny and I'm like, like what if there's just some kind of like, what if Brooklyn gets pregnant, or what if anything happens and a doctor might slip, like what if he comes to one of her pregnancy appointments down the line, like if she gets pregnant, that might come up in her file. You might have to tell somebody, not to mention to my husband, that I once had a pregnancy. Don't call it my second.
I know. I was a little worried about that. Things are gonna go awry.
Well, what do you think is going to be the reason it comes out? Like, I mean, Lois has been carrying the secret for a while. Oh,
What?
oh.
What?
Well, I don't know if Brooklyn can't get pregnant, and she's so sad that she's not a mom. Do you think that would be the reason Lois would say, or a medical emergency?
I really hope there's. I just don't want another emergency. I know this is this show called General
Either.
Hospital.
Why is everyone always having a medical crisis?
It's so annoying. That's a really okay, I would like to hope that is the path of, you made a really great choice. You made a very big decision as a mother early on, and that led to him here and yeah, just like parenting Geo. Like I kind of like that whole. I know he's like almost a full grown adult, but
But unless they're like Molly, who doesn't believe that adult children need parents. Do you remember that?
that's true. That's true. I mean, who does? Whatever.
Okay, do you know what I think?
What do you
Okay,
think?
so Brooklyn's gonna get really down, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and like she's not having a baby, she's not having a baby. But then like that day, she finds out she's pregnant. But then Lois is feeling awful because maybe she was like in crisis like earlier or the day before or right before she found out. So now
Ooh.
she's seeing her again for the first time since the last time they talked, and she's just like was devastated the last time. So before Brooklyn can even get the words out to say, I'm pregnant, Lois drops the bomb, thinking like, okay, I'm gonna take this hit because my daughter needs to know that she is a mother.
Oh la la. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so
It's
that
like
might.
it's not a who's your like those Maury shows back in the day. Like, are you the father? Are you the father? This is your son. This is your son.
But it's just like I feel bad because it's like I'm gonna do this to make Brooklyn's dreams come true, but then it's like, what about Chase? You know
I
what I
know,
mean?
right?
Like
You can
you
adopt
can't.
Geo.
Yeah. Like, do you want to hold him? He's a little. But and then Brooklyn telling Lulu, like, we all live together. Like Dante, me, Rocco, and I honestly I am insulted for Brooklyn because she keeps telling her, I love my husband. Like, can you stop
Yeah,
like
it's bad.
teasing me as if my marriage means nothing to me?
Yeah, it's not
Anyway,
okay.
no, she's acting like a child. I mean, younger than 4 years prior.
Yeah, she sounds like a big bully.
Yeah, yeah. And then she's like bringing up, oh, you're spoiled. And I'm like, okay, you're just so mad because you have no money. Like, what are you doing?
Pretty
Like,
much.
I'm like, Brooklyn is not like, I don't know, like, I like her. She's not a brat. Like, she's worked. Like, what is she
Hmm.
actually, like, I'm just saying, your feud is around Dante. What did she do money wise that bothered you? Did she ever like rub $100 bills in your face? Like, you literally ran to Brooklyn's grandma to get all her money,
Exactly.
and she said yes. Like, you didn't grow up with a trust fund, but you have access. And also, Laura has a lot of money. She's wealthy too.
Yeah, it's so bad. I think it's more because Tracy didn't give it to her when she wanted it. So she's actually the spoiled brat who doesn't get what she wants in the exact moment that she wants it,
That's so
therefore is upset. Mm.
yes. She doesn't know how to be rich, right? Because you have to wait for your trust fund. She has like no patience.
Oh yeah, even Maxie said it. Patience is not your like strong suit or whatever, or waiting or something like this.
And she's like, oh my gosh, you know me so well. I'm like, no, even Cody.
No,
It's so pathetic that everybody knows who's a caricature of just this hothead with no patience. It's like not cute.
at all. It's so bad.
And then, okay, so you have that behavior, and then you have Cody. Okay, so I'm just finding this funny. So Trina is at yoga or something and sees Kai.
Yes,
And then I'm like, are you going to introduce him to your roommate? Because technically, like, everybody in the town lives at the Quartermains and they're all your
so
roommates.
true.
So it's like, Cody's like her roommate. They're like, this is my roommate who lives in the horse house. I live in the house above the garage. And so then when he meets Kai and he's talking about the game, I'm like, don't bet the money. Don't bet the money. Don't put the
I
money.
know you see. Oh, so bad. So bad.
So why? Okay. Also, just the style that's really funny is that they have a lot of people in the background. Like they were shooting like Jordan and like Cody and like Drew, and then you have like Martin in the background for a while. And Martin was in the
Yes.
background even before. And so I don't know if you notice, and I have to record it because it's like super funny. So like we know Cody's betting because he's in the background of the bar. And no one acknowledges him until they closer to the end of the episode. So he was at Brown Dog, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Trina was there, whatever. But Cody was there from the beginning, but they never really fully acknowledge him. He's just sort of there for a while. And then there's a point where they have the camera on the teens, and then Cody just starts dancing and he's like wiggling his hips in the background. And I was dying because I'm like, because at this point in the show, we know Cody's there, we know he's betting, and we know that's going to be like obviously a story in itself. But the
Yes.
focus was on the teens and Trina and loving football and Kai and Emma coming in, and then Felicia coming in. And finally, when Sasha comes in, we have more like Cody talking. But
That's
I
so
loved,
true.
but I loved for that episode for like a good half of it, he was a background character. But I have to post that video because it was like really, really funny. So they gave a little attention to Emma. Emma's like, I'm my own person. So go. So why are you in the
Go.
town where like everybody can find you at any time?
Right? Like, come on.
She's like, I'm into petty theft. And I'm like, oh, she's one of those kids that was like loved well. You know? She was like loved well, has doctor parents, everyone's so supportive. And she's like, I'm so boring and I don't have trauma. And she's just acting out because she thinks she's lame.
Oh, that's so true.
Because like nothing exciting happened to her. All the exciting stuff happened to her mom and like her dad and like her grandparents. She's just this kid who had a stable life.
Wow, poor Emma.
Well, Lulu, right? She's like, why couldn't
Oh
I be on
gosh.
the run? Those were the cool years. And then she's like, Charlotte's on the run. It's the worst. Like, when is someone going to point that out?
Oh,
Like, literally,
thank
I
you.
just
I
can't get
know.
over the fact that she had literally a scene with Lucky saying, you got the best years. The best years. The diner they worked in blew up.
Right? I
Like,
cannot. We need to stop talking about her.
anyways, I'm gonna. Okay, so I want to talk about Joss. So I can't tell you how much I'm loving Joss and Lucky. I didn't think it would be so natural, right? Because Joss was
Yes.
like a baby. You know what I mean? She was like a non-thing when Lucky was like in Port Charles, and now he's back. So one of their main initial scenes, like she basically was like, "You're uncool, trashing our family business."
Right.
And then when she walked up to him, the fact that they could like he was reading her, being like, "What do you really want? What do you know? What do you know?" And I was like, "Oh man, I kind of really like this." But then he leaves to go talk to Elizabeth. So then you have Elizabeth and Lucas piecing everything together, okay? That like somebody's trying to kill all the patients. It's horrible, but good for Elizabeth's case.
Yes.
And then we know that well, they don't know, but we know that Portia asked Brad to do digging into that case.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, I just want all five of them to get together because it would be an interesting group of like Elizabeth hanging out with Joss, like the real history with Carly, but also, Cam's ex, and then Lucky being Joss's like relative, and then also Joss's like maybe animosity with Brad because of what he did to Michael and to her
Yes.
uncle Lucas, and then her uncle's there. Like it's a really, really interesting group.
It really is. I would like to see it's like a ragtag group of people just like take down crime because PCPD can't, you know?
No, because Anna tried. Okay, so can I
Oh
just
my
say,
word.
oh man, I mean, obviously Joss was hilarious. She messed it up. We don't want her to mess it up, but honestly, it was freaking funny and extra. But what I couldn't get over was this. Joss tells Anna her theory. Okay, there is no evidence. Like, I'm sorry, the absence of a bell tells us who did it, sure, but there's no evidence. Like, we can't arrest on that. So this was Anna's response. So you're saying Cyrus stabbed Dex and no one saw it? And I'm like, Anna, whether she says it or not, someone stabbed Dex and no
Right?
one saw it. That someone could be anyone, and her theory is that it's Cyrus. What are you talking about?
It was so weird. She's so strange. Like I can't with her sometimes. You didn't use your line. I thought for sure you're gonna use your line.
Anna Banana?
Yeah, she bananaed hard.
Oh my gosh. But then I love when she thinks she has a point when she was like yelling at Joss. And I'm like, honestly, you're lucky that Joss gave you that early out, an excuse as to why you couldn't solve this. Like, I just, and I mean, it's gonna be hilarious that Joss does, and I'm so glad that Jason is caught up in his emotions and in his family, so he's not being dragged into this crap.
Yes, thank goodness.
But the thing is, Joss doesn't know that what she's pursuing, that it's also connected to her brother. You
I
know?
know, right?
Yeah. So nobody knows about the attempt on Michael's life right now. Like not his parents anyway, like his family.
Exactly.
And Lucky didn't tell her, right? Because Lucky and Elizabeth and Lucas figured that out. And so I'm
Well,
waiting for that
exactly.
info to kind of like collide and gel. Because, like, I mean, Joss is already motivated. Imagine knowing this. And will she
I'm
balance this information kind of like keeping it from Carly? You know what I mean? Because they're already going through a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how she navigates that because basically Brendan's watching her, how she's handling this.
which is all wonderful, but also concerning because we saw those scenes with her in Dex's apartment. She has access to a gun. So is she going to use it in a spy way? In a, is she due to shoot somebody? Like, is it a check off in her life? Like, everybody in her family has shot somebody, so she must as well. Like, I just don't know.
Hmm. I
Mm,
mean, after what happened to Dex, her kind of questioning, what truly is a good way to live your life.
yes.
Um, Having made peace with Sunny at Christmas. Um, Look, shooting someone would really put things over the line. Like she loves and is loyal to her family, even though she hasn't really experienced the underworld in the way that like Michael and everyone else has. And because of that, even though they include her, like she's really looped in into a lot, but her feud with Sunny kind of made them go like they have to be a little bit careful. Like this one's a bit rogue. But I think if she does do something like that, it'll pull her into a fold in a more solid way, given that there is no Michael. So she may need to do some bad stuff in order to kind of like, I don't know, understand the people in her life that she has better.
But I also see it as like, we talked about her being recruited for the WSB. Like, I almost see it being something for her resume for them. Because if she kind
Okay,
of,
yes.
listens to Anna and takes down her like hot-headedness, which is so wild with Anna saying that to Joss because they're like the same sometimes. Like Anna has a teenager temperature,
Hmm.
temperament,
Temper, temper,
temper.
temper. Well,
Do you know what I mean?
wow.
But if she like takes all of that and Joss acts strategic and does all these things properly, that even if an incident does happen, I don't feel that's going to take her totally down a dark path. I think it's going to be like Brennan's going to be like, "You're ready. Let's take you into training."
Oh, I like that. Like more in control. But honestly, I don't think
Mhm.
she's taking any advice from Anna. I think if she's gonna approach things with her head on straight, it's either because she's had more interactions with Lucky and Brennan.
Oh yes, yes. No, that's
Yeah.
a very, very, very valid point.
Oh my gosh, some stuff about Drew and Alexis. So talking about like Drew being like so thirsty and desperate,
Oy. Mhm.
is when Alexis said, like, do you think it's a really good idea, like with the sudden dissolution of her marriage? And he jumped in almost immediately saying, it's not sudden. It's not sudden.
Guys, it was falling
Like,
apart.
it was such a terrible conversation that I was like, are you not seeing that she's gonna sue you for custody? Like,
Honestly, she's just like gathering evidence here in
she
state of
gathered
mind.
so much. Like she said, like, well, she's like in a hotel or whatever, and because like, and you want her to be around family, like she can stay with me and her aunts, like while you're chasing Willow, because that's what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
you're chasing Willow around and you're thinking about all the next steps for Willow, and you don't really seem to have your head in the game about being a parent. I just think it's so insane that he's like, I have to do all these desperate things. I have to pursue Willow aggressively because this is what Scout needs. And I'm like, you're right. Why would Scout need her own
Your
dad?
time, her
Yeah,
brothers.
yeah, you're right. I think she
Bizarro.
needs her dad's lover. That's what she needs to get through this. Screw her grandma and her aunt, the Quartermains. She's got her dad's lover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's super great,
that's a good
guys.
plan. That's a good plan. Oh my God, Tracy killed it with her lines.
So good. Tell me, what are your favorites?
Two was when she was talking to Sunny. I mean, honestly, I'm like, why aren't you understanding and speaking Tracy's language, Sunny? Like, honestly, a little disappointed. And so when he
Truly.
reminded her that the kids are actually Corinthoses, and not like quartermains, like their last name. She's like, that's a cosmic typo. And I'm like, honestly, that is like the best line I've ever
The
heard.
best.
And then when he was like, well, what do you want me to do? And she's like, I can't believe I have to explain this to the dawn of the
Yes.
Eastern Seaboard. And I'm like, true. Honestly, Tracy, I'd be equally annoyed in this scenario. Um, and then like Jason comes running through to figure
Mm-hmm.
it out. Oh man, talk about layered and the history. Oh, something popped into my head because I'm thinking about Jason and you were talking about Willow and like,
Mm-hmm.
the history and the crazy gene. So she did an interview on their podcast like a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, they were referring to the time, when he just started becoming friends with Willow right after breaking up with Carly.
Yes.
Remember when I was like, I think there's something between them? And you were like,
You
no.
were
And
all
everybody
over
was
it. And
like,
I was like, not
no.
you,
Everybody on the planet was like, no. And I'm like, I
girl.
see it. She's staring at him weird. Anyways, so then when they were talking and they were asking Willow, so like, who are your like who's your character? And then she's like, oh right, Nina's your mom. And then she's like, oh, and like I think Jason says it. See, Brittany goes, oh, they're setting you up with the crazy gene, like leaving it there to be played out.
Yes.
And it's exactly what ended up happening. I actually loved, okay, so Tracy and Jason, so much, because it's
So
like, of course
much.
he would do anything for Monica, but it's deeper than Monica. Like Tracy touched on some of his regrets,
Yes,
like
absolutely.
he evolved as Jason Morgan. He started to empathize with his parents. And so when she was bringing up Alan, and I think it's everybody. I don't think it's just Alan. Like, I mean, even when like Ned said, I think grandfather would be proud. It wasn't just that. You're having this like conversation with Ned, and Ned was happy. I think it was like for everybody. And it was just really intense because this is not the first interaction we see with Tracy and Jason where they're seeing eye to eye and they understand each other and there seems to be a respect and a
Mm-hmm.
loyalty. And I do think it's for everybody. It's for Monica that he was loyal, but it's for everything before. I think he wished he had, I don't know, given a little bit more
Oh,
to his family.
100%. Yes. Like they've brought back a softer Jason. He's had
Hmm.
time, a way to reassess all of the choices that he's made, losing Sam, connecting with his children. Like he is reevaluating. He hasn't thrown himself fully into the mob. He's been helping out here and there, kind of like a temp worker, but not really having his foot fully in there because he truly does not want that life anymore. Him moving back in and just like reconnecting with his family in this different way, and this moment was like the culmination of all of those little moments put together.
No, it was incredible because there's so much calling onto the history. And I mean,
Hmm.
look, we knew he didn't really want the mob, but let's be real, when we were watching the show, we were like, can Jason make his own decisions? Because the mob stuff
Hmm.
wasn't really going down. He was still in this place where it's like he was loyal and devoted to Sunny, but then he seemed under Anna's thumb for a little bit and it
Hmm.
was shaky. It was hard to know what direction he
True.
was going in and what does Jason choosing a life for himself look like. And I think what was so incredible to see is that Jason came home and he didn't have to come home as Jason Quartermain. Like the fact that he could have been a Quartermain as Jason Morgan. I think that's sort of a mind F, like
It
that was
really
the whole
is.
thing. You're
Yeah.
no longer this guy we used to know and we want
Hmm.
him back. And you're this new person. And it's really hard to find the middle ground because you're so far away from who you once were.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that after all these years, you finally have that common ground again. Like they actually found something to share. So I think that,
Exactly.
and imagine like that's what makes Drew mad. It's kind of like how how Nina used to sound when she used to compare herself to Carly. Like, why is it okay for her, not for me? And again, the process, it's not rushed. And
Yeah.
with Drew, he's doing all these awful things and thinks he's a core to me because he's doing awful things and because he
Yeah.
has the last name. And it's so funny. Like, he's so furious. He's like, Jason's accepted as a core to me and he doesn't have the name. I have the name and I'm not seen like that. So I think it's really fascinating. He's
Right.
like, Jason is his Carly,
Yes.
and the funny thing is he tried, right? He tried. I don't know what his deal is with though, because like Jason is his Carly, but Carly's also his Carly. Like he sees
True.
Carly like Nina saw Carly.
Yes.
And and it was so strange. Like when he was trying to like get into Willow's ear when Carly was there and he was trying his hardest to like
Mhm.
lean on it's kind of like how he keeps bringing up all of the Quartermain's past transgressions, being like, I know Quartermain history. He's trying to bring up the version of Carly that people like the least, and is trying to
Yes.
bring that up and stir things. And
Yes.
like, and he tried to do it to Nina and she didn't take the bait. That's what
It's
showed her growth. He was
beautiful.
like, oh
Yes.
man, like, and Carly, and he tried blaming because he figured, well, that's the best way to get Nina on board. He's felt in
Yes.
control of Nina since they started sleeping together, that he knew
Oh
how to
yeah, big
control and
time.
manipulate her. And she did not take the bait. She actually agreed with Carly and built on her points.
Loved it. Loved it so much.
So I mean, like, I was a bit disappointed with the conversation between Tracy and Carly.
Me too.
Tracy had it's because like I feel for both of them. I agree with both of them. But I guess what I wanted to see is like more teaming up. Again, not great for the kids or Willow, but I would have loved to see like, you know, Tracy guilted Jason. Okay, so like I don't understand. Like Tracy, you know how to negotiate. Why not tell Carly, be like, look, we want the same things. Like say what you said to Jason, that
Mhm.
giving in is not going to help. And yes, she let out her stuff about how Carly hurt the family. You know, she had the chance. She was like hashing out and dealing with her stuff. But she could have said, look, Carly, we're all on the same page. I am looking out for your family. Let me handle this and I'll get you what you need. You know what I mean? There was a
Yeah.
way to get her on board. But again, I don't feel that that's Tracy's priority to like make anybody else feel good. But I wish that there was more of a coming together. And even with Nina, I would have loved, I'm not going to say I would have loved this. It would have sucked for the kids, but like, let's
Mhm.
just imagine that Willow spiraled further with Drew.
Okay.
Um, because Nina did this once before. Nina sided with, Michael's family in favor of Nell when Nell was going through the custody. She didn't know Nell was her daughter, but
Yes.
given the opportunity to speak the truth, she did not help Nell's case and Nell lost the kids. Could you imagine Carly and Nina on the same page going for custody of the kids as grandparents
Mhm.
and like winning and working together
That would have been
until
epic.
Willow got better, if you will. And then
That
can
would
you
have been
imagine like,
wild.
and the thing is like Willow is going to feel gross. Like let's just say things escalate and like Alexis is paying attention. She talked to Curtis. So now it's like she knows what's going on with Drew a bit more. And so imagine Drew's getting sued for custody. None of that is sexy. None of that's hot. It's like at this
No.
at this point you have like it's kind of like the morning light hits and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what was I thinking?" And so I feel like that will only bring up shame. I don't see how she could feel good about their relationship and she'd probably want to distance herself. Again, if her custody issues are resolved, but imagine they're not, and she's in a custody battle, he's in a custody battle, it's a disaster.
Oh,
Because
it's
it's
such a huge mess.
because the funny thing is, if they were both having issues with kids, that would tear them apart. But like it was the opposite for Nina and Sunny, where it brought them together.
True.
But yeah, no, it's crazy. The bright side for me was all the Trina stuff, bringing like honestly, Stella has been involved in people's relationships in the show, and it's been really aggravating and infuriating at times. But
Mhm.
bringing Stella into the K Trina was like freaking the best decision. It elevates it. It's so
Yes.
cute. The relationship she has with Kai, the way she's encouraging Trina, like they're little and Trina bubbly about Kai and excited about him. Like Stella teasing Kai. Are you looking for like a card in particular? I'm loving it. Like I light up like when it's like the Stella, the Trina, the Kai stuff. I think it's amazing.
It's so fun. Even like the Trina Ava when she's talking about Kai and
Yes.
she's like it was and just Ava's face and the face acting there was like so fun.
So good.
Oh, I think we covered okay, we're gonna do like a lightning round.
Mhm.
Do we need a lightning round? Let's see
I
here.
don't know. I don't think so. All I like for me, I just want to give a gold star to like Stella Tracy. I kind of enjoyed the
Oh
conversation. But
yes.
we got this like summary of a couple of storylines through them just sort of like just sharing how their families are doing. It was kind of funny because they were touching on a lot of characters.
Yes, they were. So it was really and I loved the whole like health kick and just like them in general have a really good
Yes,
chemistry and the tea versus the smoothies and being healthy and moving your body versus dealing with your life in different ways. It was just really adorable. Do you have any favorite lines?
I think all my favorite lines were like all the stuff that I said that Tracy said. Basically, Tracy's my favorite line.
Perfect. Well, so many stars for me, except a -10 star for Drew.
Oh, -10. Okay. Okay, this was actually my favorite line because I was like, "Oh yes, that was the right thing to say." So when Sasha and Willow were going at it, I love when she was like, "And what you did to my mother." I love when Sasha went, "Oh, now she's your mother." That line could not
Amazing.
have been more earned because
Right?
there's straight up history of Sasha backing Nina regardless of what Nina did. You know, love,
Yes.
loyalty. She never turned her back on her. She like advocated for her when she could. She didn't like
Yes.
only choose Nina when Nina behaved.
Right? Oh, so
So
good.
I mean, she definitely had a leg up in that statement for sure.
It was so good. Okay, so my favorite line is when there was a Nina Drew scene and she said, "You wouldn't have love if it jumped up and bit you in the ass." And then her like literally yelling at him to get out of the
Yes,
apartment
Johnny
was
loved
like,
that.
oh my gosh, it was my favorite. Just all of her face acting. So for me, the I'm giving a scary star to Jens because he's really like knocking it out of the
Oh
park at being
yeah.
like soups creepy and like legit integrating into poor Charles just like really slowly without, and he's just saying his name. He's not like
Yeah.
hiding who he is, and then it's slowly going to trickle down. I mean, that family has everybody has enough to deal with. So it's really interesting and it's really freaking me out.
Johnny was asking me, he's like, why do you think Rick had to be there when Jens was there? And yes, he wanted money, but I think the other part too is that I said it's really typical of like Rick and Sunny to be on opposite sides. If anything, Rick will end up having like a relationship with usually Sunny's enemy. And that's usually how that works.
Oh, okay, that makes way more sense now because I was trying to make sense of that.
Yeah, like whether he knows it or not, he'll just end up having that relationship because Sunny and Rick are often like pitted against one another. So, and then Rick tends to kind of find his way into like the opposing crime family. If you think about it, I think the Zakaras.
So true. Oh my gosh, well, we did it. That's a wrap, folks. We're going to have a lovely little vacation and then we'll talk to you when we get back.
Bye.
Bye.